everybody. Welcome to the Truth Will Set You Free show, brought to you by TLBTV and the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm your host, Linda Diane Wattley. And as you can see, I got my happy face on because I have a guest today, Patricia Albere, who is a person that reminds me of what I stand for. The last time that I ran into a person of this caliber about love, it was years ago, and her name was Marianne Williamson. And she had wrote a book called A Return to Love. Mm-hmm. And her theory basically came from A Course in Miracles. But the difference in Patricia and her is Patricia is universal. I mean, anything spiritual that can enhance love, she gathered that information because she wanted to share it with the world. And she did an amazing job in her book called Evolutionary Relationships, Unleashing the Power of Mutual Awakening. The reason why I'm not just going on and on about her is because she's a deep person. You have to feel her out and get connected to her, and she's going to take you so far in that you're going to love it. I just enjoy her work. Her book is excellent. She's known all over the world as an amazing spiritual transformer and enlightening person. She's a busy lady. She has so much to give. And when you talk about love, you can't help but talk about truth because you know how I feel about truth. And I had to write down some notes from her book because some of the words and statements that she made was so profound about truth, about love, about just getting to your best self, right, Patricia?
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. And interestingly about truth, my bookkeeper, her name is Truth. She named herself Truth. So my bookkeeper's name is Truth. So we just had a meeting.
Wow. So like you stay so busy. What's the last thing you did that kept you busy?
It's sort of endless. I mean, we're launching a virtual practice community for the mutual awakening practice because we realize if you want to be in this kind of shared kind of meditation, you need other people and you need other people to know what they're doing. So we're in the process of creating a whole virtual world so that people can read the book, get inspired, learn how to do the practice, and then have a place to practice where they can work with people from all over the world. So we're working on that. And I was also just in Asheville, which was awesome. I did an evening in Asheville, in downtown Asheville, with over 100 people came, which was very exciting. The kind of spiritual people and the artistic people showed up, and we had an amazing evening. And then we did a one-day training there. So that was exciting.
So you said mutual awakening, you going viral.
That is, listen, love is viral, right? Love should be viral. Love should be the most viral thing there is that we love each other and that spurs, I love you, you love, it kind of goes on. So I realized that I had to get the resources together. We already have teachers, that can really do the work. But what's not online, like we have things where like your audience can listen and they can experience the goodness of what you're sharing, with the people that you invite and yourself. But the exchange, the ability to really be in an exchange with each other where you're going deeper into consciousness and deeper into love is not there. Mostly everything is listened to it by yourself.
But I find you pretty brave to take on love and unity at this time in the world. And you also said we're experiencing a shift right now, a very positive shift.
No, the shift is when a powerful shift occurs, there's always the breaking down of the old and the emergence of the new. The dinosaurs are dying right now. I mean, if you look into our world, the divisiveness and the manifestations of separation and hyper individuation, everybody sort of being all about themselves, is disgusting. I mean, like we're seeing the havoc that wreaks. on life and on existence. But the truth is, none of us, mostly, even though we're, good people, our consciousness is very separate. You're over there, I'm over here, everybody's in their own little bubble of self-concern, moving around. And some people are more horrible, some people are good, but we're separate. We're separate, we're separate, we're separate. And until we learn how to have consciousness, which is connected, it is not going to change. We will have shootings. We will have the insanity that we see because everyone is separate. We see each other as objects. We see each other as someone who's over there that I can project onto, that I can, be related to, but, I don't think I can know you.
So how do you?
So that has to change.
Yeah, how do you get people to come to the realization that there's something going on inside of them that could be connected to you?
Well, here's the argument for it first, and then I'll talk about how, okay? So, through time, through all of history, we've had different ways of seeing reality. So, if you and I went back to the Middle Ages, where there was no discovery of medicine, they didn't know what was going on inside of a person. People hadn't been cut open and, things hadn't been figured out. If we got sick, they'd bleed us or they'd put leeches on us. It was kind of crazy, right? They didn't know what to do. And now we have a very complex way of breaking things down and figuring out, how we can heal people, both physically and spiritually. Now, we still think we're separate, so Newton said we are separate objects in time and space, and, we can take things apart and figure out how they work. And we operate like that. Psychology is, I'm like this something that I can figure out how to heal my childhood and how to, work out the missing pieces. The modern scientists are saying none of that is true. You're not a billiard ball. You're not a separate object. You're not a separate person, really. That actually who we are is this kind of relatedness. And our practices, most of our prayers and our meditations are, we close our eyes, we go inside ourselves, and we try to have something happen. But it's still, Linda's over there, Patricia's over here. The practices that I'm introducing are aligned with what the mystics have always known and what the scientists are saying, which is we're not as solid as we think. We're not we aren't as separate as we think. We're not as solid as we think. That actually there's a kind of consciousness that you can begin to connect with where you feel this sense of oneness. You actually feel that we're not separate. When I have people in person in particular, and I work with them, there's a way you can go inside the other person. Like you can actually know what the other person's feeling, no problem. You can actually know what other people are thinking. It's not hard. People think psychics can only do that. No, everybody can do that. Everybody can do that because it's the truth. The truth is you aren't all that separate. And your thinking is not locked in your head. So there's a way to practice. The mutual awakening practice that I describe in the book is a way of looking at each other, really being together and allowing ourselves to go into a space where we are actually in consciousness together and we can feel each other. We can know each other from the inside. And to me, the only way that the Christian thing of, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is sorely missing in our world. Drastically missing. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you is not happening in our world, hardly at all. It's horrible right now. And the only way you can do that is you can't do it because you're told that it's a good way to be. You can do it when I feel you as myself, where I actually, my nervous system is, I'm sensitized to you. If I'm harsh or judgmental and I feel you, I can't do it. I can't do it if I don't stab myself in the foot. I don't have to tell myself, don't stab yourself in the foot. It's like, of course I'm not stabbing myself in the foot because it's my foot. If I can feel you the way I feel myself, there's things I will not do because I just won't. And that is, I mean, believe it or not, human beings' consciousness does evolve. It really does. We are not, it does. I mean, we're not cavemen. You know, in cavemen days, people were kind of like grunting and couldn't think and had very little self-reflection. Now, all human beings have a certain amount of self-reflection. We can think about ourselves. We can think about what we see. We can know what we know. And so we're headed towards another kind of consciousness. I'm almost always one of those people's at the beginning of things. You know, I went to Woodstock when I was 15. So I end up, I'm kind of like Forrest Gump, like I end up being places where things are just beginning. And now I'm old enough to know that I do that. And this is the future. I mean, in 20 years, everyone's going to be talking the way I'm talking today. You know, they're going to be working on how do we come together? How do we feel into each other? How do we create a consciousness of shared unity and sensitivity? That will become normal. That will become the way families are, the way people at schools are, and maybe even the way we are in our government.
So you think this will occur before destruction, or you
I
think
do.
it'll make it?
I do. I feel strangely optimistic, even though I'm a realist. I know that when something is ending, it gets really bad.
Like the birth of a child?
Yeah, no kidding. And even like Steve Bannon, who's just sort of a frightening character, that he said that the patriarchy that Donald Trump so represents, you know, this sort of white male patriarchy thing, which has been dominating the world for a very long time, that he's such an intense version of it, that may be what we need to finally take it down, you know, for women to speak up, for people to speak up in a way that we start to go, wait a second, you know, this is actually not who we are, and this is not the way we want to do it.
And I'll tell you another thing that's very rare about you, Patricia. A lot of people want the world to know that things are better than it was for them because they had suffered so in some aspect of
Right.
life. But looking at your life was so filled with love already. And then you said you had a moment when you realized you needed a greater love because your mom, your husband, I mean, you just really was overflowing with it. So how does something like that come into a person?
Well, one of the things, I mean, I think we have different paths of like what moves us to help the world, you know, what moves us to want to make a difference. Like, I'm sure you have a story about why you're doing this, you know, what brought you to be about the truth shall set you free. You know, I'm sure there's a story behind that. So some people it's pain, some people it's because you've really suffered and you know that you can help other people find their way through that. For me, I think I had very good karma. I had a really unusually great mom. You know, I had a family where, you know, my dad supported my mom. You know, we were sort of, you know, upper middle class to doing okay. So there was nothing impinging on me. You know, I didn't have a race problem. I didn't have a religion problem. I didn't have like something that I could get riled up about and go, wait a minute, you know, this isn't fair, because I would have. I know myself, you know, I would have gotten all worked up about, you know, whatever it was that was actually, you know, trying to stop me that felt unfair. So it led me to the consciousness part of it. So I have a sensitivity to wanting people to have the best possible support with the most fairness and the most love, because you see people thrive. It's like when you watch those, you know, animal videos where they find some dog that is, you know, totally been neglected and abused, and then people start loving them and giving them a chance, and then the dog's happy and they have a forever home and everybody's like happy. You know, you realize that humans are like that too. You know, if we're given the kind of support that I felt I was given, you know, from my mom and from some of the other people in my life, and people that had integrity and people that did tell the truth, then you see what people are swimming in. And it's so not okay. It's so not okay. And when like in the work that I do, I feel like I create a very safe space. I create a very empowering space for people. and they thrive. They thrive. You know, you have people that are wounded and they come in, and all of a sudden it's like those dogs, you know, like they kind of go, oh my God, nobody's trying to hit me anymore. You know, nobody's trying to, you know, I'm not in a world where the separateness and the lack of love has been normalized.
Well, what was,
So anyway, so that partly inspires me, is like I'm trying to create a pretty refined environment, because I also feel that human beings have to innovate in consciousness. Like there's at least probably about 1,000 people that need to push the edge of where human beings can go in the domain of love, in the domain of truth, in the domain of safety and stuff like that. And that if we can really push that edge and manage to like embody a shared unity that is really substantial, it will, you know, it will help lift what's possible for everyone.
so
I do
how,
believe that.
so how did you figure out a way to say, hey, world, I have something to tell you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been a teacher, you know, so you know, have you ever heard of Landmark, the Landmark Forum, or Werner Erhard, or AST, or any of that, or coaching? No. So there's different ways of transforming your life, you know, like Tony Robbins, you've heard of him. You know, there's a transformational way of living. And I met a man like that when I was 18, who was bigger than Tony Robbins, you know, bigger than,
Oh, you're
absolutely.
talking about,
Werner Erhard.
yeah.
Yeah. So I met him when I was an 18-year-old. And so I was a teacher for many years, and I'd worked with tens of thousands of people. And when so I've been doing, you know, work with people for a very long time. But then when I was in my 30s, I met a young German man who was a very mystical man. You read about him in the book. And we had a kind of love that you don't even read about. You know, people could only imagine, you know, a kind of divine level of love. And when we were together for the 4 years that we were together before he died, he was in a car accident and then eventually killed himself, actually, because he was brain injured. The quality of awakening and consciousness that we had was so amazing. And I was already a teacher, so I kind of know how to like help people find a way in. And I was so distraught that when I finally had healed at least a little bit, I started to try to bring people into the space that we had shared of this incredible consciousness and love. And it
So,
worked.
so did you start with just one person or two people, or did you?
No, I mean, I was pretty well known. So, I mean, I had a certain following of people that just trusted whatever I did.
Oh,
And so I had about 30 people when we did this first group, and we were experimenting with, what if we try to go into that space that Peter and I had been in, and what was possible there for a group of human beings, you know, not lovers, but just human beings turning towards each other in a certain way. And it was extraordinary. And that was 11 years ago.
I also happened to come across you also as a cancer survivor.
I am.
Yes, and
I am.
yeah, the experience you had kind of validated everything that you were giving. Share with us what that group of people gave you during that time that made it seem so almost beautiful.
Yeah, it's true. So the Evolutionary Collective is this, you know, the 30 people has grown into 100. So there's a very committed group of people. I also do other work online where you don't have to be as committed. You can sort of dip your toes in and see how it goes, right? But this particular group, you know, and also if people want to know, they can just go to evolutionarycollective.com, and they can download the first 3 chapters of the book for free. So they can kind of get a better sense of the whole thing. But this group of 100 people have really been building, you know, we meet together 3 times a year in person, and we work online, and people are practicing, and we're sort of building this nervous system of connectivity, you know, of an incredible amount of intimacy and connectivity. And we go into these sort of meditations with our eyes open together that really go deep, right? And so it's like having this large body. Like, it's almost like you're part of a larger system. A little bit like if you watch really amazing basketball team, when they slip into that zone where they're not just playing together, they're like one organism. Like you can almost feel like they're playing like they're one. And then they pop back out and they go back into being individual guys, right? But you can feel human beings' ability to move into that place where we're functioning like we're one. It's a zone. It's a kind of zone. So we have that, and it's extraordinary. And when I found out I had breast cancer, and I'm not stoic. I'm not, I'm kind of a baby when people, give me shots and stuff like that. I'm like, like this, is by being so connected to this group, it was sort of a non-issue. I had chemo. I threw up twice. The worst part was losing my hair and having to grow it back, like I'm still not entirely with it. But it wasn't a thing. Usually cancer is a very big deal. It's a pretty big deal. And I was like working and, selling an apartment and buying a house and, getting my book launched and being with everyone and going through it. And it was almost like it was in the background of my life. It wasn't in the foreground. And I'm fine. It's not like I didn't have to go through, chemo and radiation. I had to take the time to go do those things, but it wasn't a drama. Like there wasn't a drama around it. There was just love and support and me just kind of getting it done and paying attention to other things. I wasn't even like that busy with it. And that's part of this consciousness. Interestingly enough, the consciousness that we're sharing by being really together allows you to not make yourself such a big problem. You know how like we're usually this big problem we're trying to solve?
Wow.
Right? It's like you and all your stuff.
So did you feel them, or you was just...
No, they were so with me. It was amazing. Part of the consciousness of the practice has to do with being in and for each other. Oh. And mostly human beings are not in and for you. You're kind of on your own.
Yes.
Even with a good friend, sometimes there's a certain level of competition, there's a certain level of, you don't say stuff. And we really have developed something that's extraordinary and is the way it's supposed to be for humans. We should not experience being on the planet by ourselves.
How long have you been doing this?
11 years. And the groups are continuing to grow. There's like for someone like you read the book.
Right.
If you want to actually experience doing this practice and doing it with other people and seeing what happens, we actually have a 4-part online course that teaches people and takes them through the practice with others so that you go, oh, okay, cool. I got it. Like I know how to do this now. And then there are online opportunities to continue to deepen and practice and learn this, and you can do it from your home in Ohio.
So what do you actually mean by revolutionary relationship?
Well, it's a higher order of relating. We can be related. I've been in relationships where it's not a very high order, right? Where we can be actually pretty nasty to each other. Or it can just be very basic. You're kind of, you have sex and you talk and you do logistics and, but there's a lot of separateness. You're kind of like functioning separately. This is about this quality of consciousness and love that I teach people how to access through the practice so that you really have that kind of, you can have more and more that kind of amazing level of connection that when you've had that with a person, you remember it, and having that to be more normal. Have you ever had that experience where with a lover or with a friend, like you feel like you're one with them for a certain period of time? Have you ever had that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So when that happens, instead of that being like, wow, like where did it come from and where did it go? You're actually learning to have a kind of consciousness that makes that normal. And I think that's worth learning. I
Yes.
think that's worth investigating.
So, like inertia to me, for what you're talking about, it's like it's open to every living soul.
Absolutely.
Okay, if you came up, let's say you just came up to a crowd of white supremacists.
Yeah.
Would they knock down your group, or were
Well, I'm sure they probably would, but
knock them
here's
down?
here's the thing that would be interesting. I've never done it, but there's a deeper place. I call it the origination point. There's a place that I have people kind of lean back into, which is at the core of who you are. It's way beyond your beliefs and what you look like and where you came from, and all of that is secondary. I mean, there's a very deep part of you, Linda, like the people who love you, they see into that part of you, and it's deeper than anything. And when you feel seen there, someone saw you. Like some part of you feels recognized, even though you can't really explain it. All the rest of it is, what you do or don't do or know or don't know. None of that is really who you are. So if you could get people that are on very opposite sides of life, if they would listen to me, if they would be willing to do what I asked, and I could get them to look into each other's eyes, really, and to lean into that deeper place, to see all the way over into who's really in there. Forget all the rhetoric and the, what they've done. And there's a place of recognition where we see each other, where it's like beyond all of it, we can see each other. And I assert that if I can get people, if you could get your hands on more people and get them to connect from that place and then have the conversation. And when you start spinning out and going, yeah, well, you get them back and you go, okay, stop. Look into their eyes. Let's find each other again. Let's find that deep place. And now let's talk and let's see what we can work out. And then you keep bringing it back. I think we would have a chance. Just like if you have an argument with, are you married?
I'm widowed.
You're widowed. Okay. So, when you used to have arguments, right? With whoever, your husband, probably there were times where you couldn't find each other. You're like on one side, he's on the other side, and you're kind of going at it. And then all of a sudden you start laughing and you remember who's over there. And you're just like, what are we doing?
My husband wouldn't argue with me.
He wouldn't? Oh, God bless him. God
he just refused to argue with me.
So he wouldn't even go there.
I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, there's a place where it's like, oh, there you are. And you're like, oh, yeah, there you kind of remember. And I believe that the next place we're headed is that level of connectivity is where we need to practice and find each other. And when we do that, when that becomes the strongest place where we connect, then we have a chance at working out our differences and our different beliefs. And, we won't do it from divisiveness. We'll do it from that we actually are already unified.
Well, tell me this. Have you recently, like since you wrote your book, have you learned anything new?
Oh, constantly. Oh, my God. Especially with my group.
Uh-huh.
That whole thing with my cancer was a revelation that
I know.
What we started to work on with everyone was the concept of what if we had 100 people and we embraced being issueless? Like, what is that, right? Everybody's busy with their issues, right? That's what everybody, you have your issues and I have my issues. And, and so we actually took that on, and that was quite exciting to get freer, to get less busy with ourselves, and also to put to rest some of the things that we never put to rest. Some people have issues that they've been dragging around for 20 years.
Wow.
Well, the same old thing. It's money, it's your weight, it's your thing. It's like everybody has the same thing that they're constantly not dealing with.
Like when you say your teaching goes beyond psychological, what are you actually saying?
Well, I'm saying that there, like I was saying before, this deeper place of connection is deeper than the psychological level.
Mm.
And if you deepen that and you make, let me see if I can find, there was a quote. Hold on, I have a quote for you, I think.
You have some amazing quotes.
Oh, it's not in here. Rats. Okay, sorry. It would be too hard to find it. But there's a pure point. This origination point is the deepest dimension of who you are, and it's findable.
I remember reading that.
It's findable. It's deeper than your psychology. It's deeper than your personality. It's deeper. It's the place where we actually do love each other from that place. And what mostly, if you teach people how to keep finding that and practicing and deepening and coming from there and seeing that in other people, seeing into the depth of people, really learning how to tune in. Because mostly we see people so superficially. Actually, we see projections. I mean, we don't even see people. Most of the time, we just have our idea of who's over there. So we're learning how to do that. And when you do that, then the woundedness or the various things that you're dealing with kind of show up differently. There are different ways that we deal with pain or, the things that are there for people. It's hard to explain, but there's a different way to come together around that, which is different than psychological. Well, I don't even know how well psychological works. I mean, it works to some degree, but to some degree it doesn't.
Well, do the church receive you?
Yeah, interestingly, I don't know. So Marianne Williamson, who you mentioned, used to be the head minister at Renaissance Unity in Detroit, which is a big mega church. It was like 3,000 people, whatever. And I've been there. So the Reverend Jim Lee is good friends with, what is it, Michael Beckwith? Michael Beckwith in LA.
This sounds familiar. Yeah.
He's a famous, they have a huge church. It's crazy. So I have a bunch of Unity ministers that are in the work that I do. They love it. I have a Catholic nun. I've had 3 Catholic nuns do my work.
Wow.
So I don't know, we joke about it. We call it Beyond Unity.
Wow. I mean, when you can get religious structures to be receptive to.
We've had a Swami. We've had like a Swami. We've had somebody who was a Buddhist. I mean, we've had different people and different teachers in the integral movement, different authors. There's a famous author that's coming for this next 3-day that I'm doing, a New York Times bestselling author. So it seems to attract people that know that we're kind of on the edge of something new, and they want to be a part of that. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's actually very aligned with the various religions, but I think it takes it a little step further.
Okay.
We need to come together. We need to come together. Meditating by ourselves and personal salvation may not be enough.
You have a beautiful definition of love.
I don't remember. Well, Well, go ahead. You have the quote?
Yeah, you said love is passion, and it seeks for 2 things, eternity and intensity, and in the relation of the lover and the beloved. The seeking for eternity and intensity is instinctive and self-born, passing beyond desire for possession, which means a difference. It is seeking for oneness, 2 souls merging into each other.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. That's a period I had.
Yeah, I had so many things that I had to keep from your book that was awesome. Beautiful.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
It was awesome. You wrote that book.
Thank you.
And you gave a lot for us to not have an excuse to not have some gentleness about ourselves.
Well, here's the thing. So I'll send you a link. Okay. There's about the online, so you can get to do this.
Okay.
Because I'm telling you, you'll be blown away. Like if you sit even on Zoom, right, across from another person, and you learn how to do the practice, it's kind of remarkable. Like you kind of go, wow, how did that happen?
Is it kind of like feeling like being born again? Because it seemed like to me, that's what love does. It replenishes. You know,
it's very nourishing.
Yeah, and it's lacking big time.
Well, here's the other thing to go with your truth. To me, intimacy is truth.
Oh, you have some beautiful quotes on truth.
But that's the truth. I mean, if you're close to something, you're with it the way it is. And you and I are together wanting to be close to whatever's there. We're being close to the truth. That's what intimacy is.
Wow. Just one of your quotes about truth, just one of them. I have several.
Okay.
You said, truth takes you home. Truth opens doors and more doors. It is a journey, a thread of greatness.
Yeah, I love the truth. I mean, the truth shall set you free. And it is the pathway to profound intimacy with other human beings. If we could stop judging what we experience, and you and I could just come together and be curious, almost like two little kids, you know, and kids are like looking at bugs or something, and they're like, what is that? What is that? What is that? You know, we want to like come close to whatever's real, whatever's true. Like that's our relationship with the truth instead of avoiding it or manipulating.
Well, you said truth leads to reality. That was the bottom line.
Yeah.
And then reality, see,
is everything.
Yeah, and if you listen to what you're saying, you hear consciousness, awakening, you know, mutual, you know, togetherness and oneness and relationships. When you're looking at all of this, it's almost like the reality that life is dimensional.
It is.
You know what I mean? It's like you have ventured off into more than the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. But that's what's possible for people. I mean, the thing is that's the possibility, is we're not just here living our linear lives. Actually, when you go into this deeper dimension, you feel like you're here, you're not here, you're here. I mean, all the things you read about become real.
Wow.
Including, you know, like Peter's debt. Do you know what I mean? Like your husband. So, you know, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I can feel him. You feel him. You feel
definitely.
So that's another dimension.
Every day. Huh?
Every day. It's like that's a different dimension, but people don't realize that that's even, you know, that all of that is possible by being here. And you can feel the love that's there. Do you know what I mean? Like you can feel many more dimensions. I mean, the non-local thing in science is that once you've ever been connected, you're never not connected.
And see, that's the thing I be trying to tell people, you know, like when you experience death is the ultimate reality that we are addictive beings.
Yeah.
We want things to always stay the same. And when they change, we go through withdrawal. But if we would realize we never had their bodies ever before, but we was able to look at them. But what we have, death can't take away unless we block it with pain and grief. We block what we already had for them. And a lot of people think that if they hold on to it, that they're holding on to that person. But they don't realize they're cheating themselves by replacing what they had with this sadness and addiction withdrawal. Once they move that out of the way, they'll realize they can always embrace that person.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Absolutely. I totally agree.
Because I know for a fact that it's just never ending.
It's true. It really is true. They're always there. And the relationship goes on. It's not even like it's frozen in time. It continues.
So knowing what you know about Jesus, where will you and Jesus be with this journey that you have?
Well, interestingly, you know, when I met Werner when I was 18, I was living in San Francisco and I went to the Grace Cathedral. And I sat down and I was kind of I was going to meditate. I don't know what I was doing. I was going to close my eyes. and I was raised, you know, like as a 2-year-old, you know, my mom was part of the church and I was Protestant and stuff, but, you know, I wasn't kind of looking for Jesus at that moment in time when I was 18. And I had a visitation. I had a very powerful experience where he showed me what I would be doing for the rest of my life. Like he turned me around and all of a sudden I saw people in groups with an aisle down the middle. And I just started crying. I didn't know what it meant. I was supposed to go to art school and I was, you know, going to go to art college. And, you know, I've spent the rest of my life, you know, I've been in front of 200,000 people as far as teaching. And so I feel deeply connected. And I also, you know, there are some people, some of the Catholic nuns, you know, who know things that I don't know. They feel that, you know, that the return, you know, that the return of Christ will be not as an individual, but the body of Christ is us in communion.
Collective.
And we're in communion. We are each other. We are together. And that's exactly what I'm teaching. So,
wow.
You know, if you want to interpret it from there, you can. Some people aren't comfortable with that. But nevertheless, it's happening. You know, there's a kind of coming together and learning how to be in communion, how to be one with one another as a practice instead of closing your eyes by yourself and learning how to meditate.
You know, I have to share this calling that you have. I think it's beautiful, okay?
Yeah.
My calling is to hold open the portal to a new dimension of love and joy that only emerges in the field between people who are committed to new and deeper forms of intimacy. That is a beautiful calling.
You're great. I gotta tell you
know that.
Can I say something about you first?
Sure.
Okay. Your openness, you have like this really humble heart. It's amazing. I mean, there's a purity in your heart that is so open and sweet and sincere. I'm sure that's why people listen to you. You know what I mean? I'm sure of it. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a place that you come from that's very soothing even.
Aww.
You know, there's like a delight in it, but it's very kind of like almost you could rest into feeling, you know, the purity and feeling safe and feeling your genuineness.
Oh, thank you.
It makes sense that you love the truth.
Oh, God, yeah. I was so excited about getting you here because they say, you know, spirit bears witness of the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have a beautiful soul. You're just awesome to me. And I appreciate you,
Thank you.
You know, allowing this to happen because in the world today, you know, a lot of people nobody get into that anymore, but that's not true. People are crying you know.
I mean, look what's happening right now.
Oh, God, they're starving.
And also look what just happened, you know, with the kids in the school. And I think, you know, Teilhard de Chardin, who was a Jesuit priest and who, let me see if I have any of his quotes. I don't. He was the one who said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience.
Oh, Dr. Dwyer.
No. That was Teilhard de Chardin.
Oh, where's
it was misquoted.
Oh, really?
Here's a quote from Teilhard. So he says, driven by the forces of love, the fragments of the world seek each other so that the world may come into being. Love alone is capable of uniting living beings in such a way as to complete and fulfill them, for it alone takes them and joins them by what is deepest in themselves. He felt that what we've been doing for the last 3,000 years, right, since Buddha and Jesus were around, is we've been individuating. We've been learning how to wake up ourselves. We've been learning how to take more responsibility for ourselves, to grow, to individuate, and to create this amazing 7.5 billion person world. Okay? And through knowledge, a lot through knowledge and separation, through taking things apart and dividing them and figuring out how they work, right? But going forward, we're headed towards 10 billion people in 2050.
Wow.
10 billion, 2.5 billion more people. We're headed towards more people, more people, more people. Individuation is not what we need. More knowledge is not what we need. You know, you like on the internet, don't you get sick of it? You know, you're like reading everything. You know, it's kind of like, oh my God, like enough already. Is what we need is to actually activate love. Not just what we think love is. Love is a very powerful force that we have only begun to discover what it's capable of. You know, we've relegated it to relationships. We've relegated it to our romance. I mean, it's put into such a small box, and it has enormous power and enormous creativity. And he said, what we're headed towards is to discover what love can do. Because on this planet, if we were to activate love really, and we were to come into union, what could human beings not do? Wow. We could do anything, right? I mean, it's not a problem. I mean, if we were together and we actually loved each other and loved the world, and we started using all of our resources in the right direction, no problem. We're just crazy. You know, we're just at the end of a way of being that just isn't going to take us forward.
I agree.
And we think it's normal. We think that's the only way humans can be. That is not the only way humans can be.
But like you were saying too, though, some people are actually getting tired of it.
You think?
Yeah.
I think people are crying. I mean, I think there's a fed upness that is building of the divisiveness, and the separation is just horrible at this point.
Yeah, and the thing that I taught my children is people can only give you what they have. And if they don't have love, they can't give it.
But if we come together and we nourish each other, we will have more.
Right. And it'll prepare the heart for it.
And we activate it by being together. It doesn't even have to be me giving to you. It's we come together in the right way, and something fills up. It's not one to the other, it's together.
Constantly.
Yeah, that's what will save the world.
Wow.
So,
if people wanted to get your book or get in touch with you, how do they do that?
So the name of the book is Evolutionary Relationships, Unleashing the Power of Mutual Awakening by Patricia Albere. So they can always go to Amazon. The other thing is they should go to evolutionarycollective.com, and right at the top of the page, it says download your first 3 chapters here. If they do that, we will also know who they are, and we can send them an invitation to a free call. So I'll do a free live call talking about the practice itself. And I'll send you the
Definitely. I definitely want that too.
Yeah, no, I think you would really like this.
Patricia, you are on the Truth Will Set You Free show. Give us a truth to remember you by.
Oh, truth to remember me by. That the future of the world is a consciousness of love. That's the truth.
Say that again.
So the future for us, it will be made out of the consciousness of love.
Okay. I'll hold you to that.
That's my truth. I stand up.
Hey, okay, I'll hold you to that.
Okay.
Appreciate you for coming on our show today.
Thank you for inviting me so much. It was a pleasure to be with you, Linda.
Oh, definitely. I definitely enjoyed your spirit.
Yeah, you too.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.